Hello and welcome everybody. I wanted to test out a new streaming setup. I'm using this software called Restream that's letting me stream to multiple places at the same time. Whoops, I had my volume up. And I just tried out the Restream chat, which is letting me hopefully see chat in all of the different spots at the same time. So I'm partly just streaming this to test that out, but I figured that I should do something, and I was actually hoping to build something using a two-dimensional grid, wanting to use the work that we were doing earlier on 2D grids in some of the live coding playlists. And what I did before starting this stream was to make all the square costumes in this pixel sprite smaller. Now they're 8x8 instead of, I think before they were much larger. And as you can see with this number here, this is getting about 15 frames per second using the FPS counter that I have. So what I did was make the pixels smaller and change the spacing so that they're closer together. And I deleted a bunch of code that was related to trying to do a depth first search. Hello! Welcome to the chat. Oh, I'm not seeing it in this combined chat yet. There's a delay between when you send the message and when I actually see it over here. Okay, that's interesting to know. Hi. So the pixels are smaller, and I went through and deleted a bunch of the code that was related to depth first search that wasn't working yet because it was very, very slow. And one of the things that I noticed was that this tick function here is getting called, I don't know where the event handler went. There's probably a here. When I receive tick, then I'll drag this down below where it's calling this. So when I receive tick from the main loop, it's calling this tick function, and that's calling update grid. And initialize grid is doing two separate things. One is it is checking to see if the number of clones on the screen is the correct expected amount. Sorry, it's checking to see if the length of this grid array, this one here, which stores the contents of what's being rendered in this grid, it's checking to see if the length matches the expected number of these pixel sprites on the screen. And then if it does not match, then it'll delete the whole list and recreate it to be the correct size. And I do think it's possible to make this more efficient, but what I wanted to do was to actually, hold on just a second. I'm going to be right back. So feel free to chat in the meantime. Hello, I'm back. So what I was noticing was that most of the time this if statement isn't going to run, and even though it's most of the time not doing all of this expensive list operations where you delete the whole list and add items back in one at a time, it's still the case that it has to do this multiplication here and check it against the length of the grid. I don't know how long that takes. I was curious. So let me turn this off. That seems to be slowing things down too, possibly. We're back up to 14 and 15 frames per second. So what I wanted to do was create a new function here, where is that? That's down here. So we'll call this one update grid contents or something, and run it without screen refresh so that it could potentially run faster than 30 frames per second. And what I can do is this initialization is still necessary, this I, because this is a loop iterator value, but we can extract this code into this new function and then call the function over here and see if that makes things any faster, because what we can also then do is, instead of initializing the grid here, we can just say update grid contents. So previously, it looks like this isn't really making that much of a difference. Previously is ranging between, I don't actually quite remember, this looks like it's maxing out at 15.2 or something like that, and previously I think it's probably about the same. It might be slightly faster. The way to tell for sure would be to take more samples of these numbers and average them out. But at the very least, we're no longer running this code every time. However, what I think may have now happened is that this initialized grid is no longer being called. So I suspect, here, bring this up. I suspect that, oh, it is actually called here. So if we stop and start again, we can just double check that everything works. And I think the last test that it would be good to do is to actually stop and then go to the grid list and then actually delete everything out of the grid list entirely, like that, and then start again and make sure that it fills up to the right size, and it does. In future videos, what I'm hoping to do is to try to optimize this code some more, and then write another set of code that takes this button and moves it around the grid and keeps hitting stamp over and over again. I've seen some code that does something similar with a 1 pixel. Instead of using stamp, it used draw, like pen down, and that was pretty slow. But I'm curious to see if stamping 165 times is faster than creating the 165 clones up front and then updating them over and over again. So I also wanted to mention that there is a new Discord chat. The link will be in the video description, and it's in the chat currently, so please join that if you're interested. And thank you for watching, and see you next time.